Packers fans, stay up to date on all of your Packers news this season via our newsletter. You can sign up for the PackersNews.com and more Journal Sentinel newsletters by clicking on the link in the brief field of this video.
Packers fans, welcome into the Green 19 podcast from JS Online and PackersNews.com. I'm Kassidy Hill, joined as always by Tom Silverstein and Ryan Wood here from Lambeau Field, where we are so lucky
rocking
to get
some KC and the Sunshine Band.
Tom Silverstein concert today. I was singing a song and I didn't know who sang it. I just felt like it was the Talking Heads all over again.
Spoon wants to sing for us, I think.
He does.
Right?
No, not now. Although, but give me a few drinks at a wedding and I'm good to go.
I might have I didn't know who sang the song "Get Down Tonight," but I knew the song. I don't think I could tell you a Talking Heads song.
Yeah, you can. Burning Down the House.
Oh yeah, that's another wedding classic.
I don't know that song.
Burning down the house.
The lyrics are so
me.
bizarre that they're all non sequiturs. It's the coolest song ever.
They're all non sequiturs. What does that
means? Like they don't tie together. There's nothing. David Byrne just kind of came up with all these little phrases. You know.
That's like the song.
Cool babies.
It's like the
song. I feel bad.
The LMO song "Summer Girls" is like that. So, anyways, let's talk about the Packers, the Green Bay Packers, going into the Pittsburgh Steelers house this weekend. A tough place to play on your best of days, but these are two teams. Gosh, Matt LaFleur talked about mirror week last week. This could be mirror week with these two teams. You've got Pittsburgh, who is, by all accounts, based off what they're used to, with a Hall of Fame quarterback now gone, kind of relying on a stout defense, not where they probably want to be. It's a transition time. The past couple of years have been for them as well. A lot like where the Packers currently are. You almost could even say that their records should be the same. The Steelers are 5-3, and the Packers are 3-5. If that Raiders game and that Broncos game goes one play different, Packers are sitting here at 5-3 as well.
Not to interrupt, but you know what the difference is?
What? Mike Tomlin?
No. Kenny Pickett is money in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And Jordan Love has not been.
The Steelers know how to win.
Right. And that's what I was going to kind of get to is with what Pickett and the defense have been able to do in the fourth quarter of their games. They're finding ways to win where the Packers have not been able to do so. So that being said, let's just kind of start from the top. I've never covered a game in Pittsburgh. Is it as intimidating as people say it is?
No, I mean, I don't. I don't know what to say about it. There's a lot of people in black and gold, and they're, loud and they're waving towels. Yeah. Anything that you think is?
I had a bad barometer for this because the one game I've covered in Pittsburgh was 2017, and it was against Brett Hundley in the Packers.
So not even
and Brett Hundley had his best game ever in a Packers uniform that game, so it came a lot. But I think there was an expectation going in that the Steelers were just going to roll over them, and then that didn't happen. But it kind of deflates the atmosphere a little bit.
Didn't Antonio Bryant make two unbelievable catches on that last drive?
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah, he was really good.
But just the lasting impression for me was, wait a second, does Brett Hundley have something? And then it was very quickly.
That was his one shining moment. Shining moment. Mm-hmm. We're going to sing a lot, apparently.
But it's a cool place. I mean, I like Pittsburgh. It was my really one time ever there. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a beautiful city. It's very Appalachia, all the bridges. It's a nice place. And
it's Mike McCarthy's hometown.
Yeah,
really?
they love their teams. They are a very passionate fan base.
So I grew up in Birmingham until I was 14, and Birmingham is called Little Pittsburgh.
Oh,
because it's the same setup, both industrial still cities. Yeah, a lot of the same bridges over the river, stuff like that. This is a place where the Packers offense this week has talked about, they're probably going to have to use a silent count, but they've done that throughout the season. So not too much, I would think, to focus on there. The bigger question is going to be, can they take what they were able to do against the Rams and, put aside even the caveat that it was the Rams with Brett Rippon, just the momentum that you can take from what you yourself did, finally scoring in the first half for the first time since week 2, and then capping it with a score in the fourth quarter to close things out. Is that a tangible thing that a team can ride into another game, especially when they're looking for something, Spoon?
Well, it would if they had beaten someone significant, I think.
Like last year with the Cowboys?
Yeah. Right now, I don't know what. I am really tempering my, thoughts on them beating the Rams. One day after they beat Brett Rippon, he gets cut,
Did
and
he
they
really?
signed Carson Wentz. Yeah.
Yep.
So, that's says a lot about who they were facing. And I don't take much into that victory. I think what I want to see is whether they get, their wheels blown off in this game, or they actually come in and try to and compete. I think it's going to say a lot about the rest of the season.
Is this one of those games, Ryan, especially looking at these two teams, where do you want to be if you're the team that punches first, can that be enough?
I think it's more than that. You want to be the team that knows how to maximize whatever you have on your roster and knows how to win close games, because this is it should be a close game. It should be. And if this is a close game, you have two teams, one that knows how to pull these things out and win, and you have one in the Packers that, yeah, you're right. Like they've been in one play short in a lot of games, a lot of close, but they clearly haven't been making that play. They clearly have not found out how to maximize this roster and win yet. And that's a mismatch in a close game. One team that knows how to win these and the other doesn't. So at some point, these baby Packers need to grow up and learn how to win these type of games in this league. I don't know if it's this week or not, but yeah, they have an opportunity to. The way I look at the Brett Rippon, situation is from the Rams' perspective. You're going into that game not happy that you have to start Brett Rippon over Matthew Stafford, but you're looking across the line of scrimmage and you're saying, well, at least there's a pair of seventh-round rookies in that secondary. Like this should be a situation. It could be a lot worse. You should be able to take advantage of that, and they absolutely could not, to the point that Brett Rippon was out of the league the next day. So this is a we got to see more from Carrington, Valentine, Anthony Johnson Jr. But this is Kenny Pickett is an opportunity for them to continue to build on what they've kind of started here.
So let me ask you this, and it sounds like y'all are both maybe even leaning this way already. For as much as we talk about Jordan Love and a Packers game sort of revolving around him, is this a game that comes down more to that Packers defense and Kenny Pickett?
Yeah, so two things
even with the TJ Watt of it all.
Yeah, two things that would give the Packers a chance. One is they can't fall behind. Like they fall behind 14-0, they're dead. Because TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, they'll just be in the backfield the entire day. And the other thing is, they got to take advantage of a young quarterback. And they're playing okay defense, even though it's, hasn't been against the best guys around. But they got to get some turnovers. They got to get some sacks. They got to keep themselves in the game, because once you fall behind there, then you're done. 7-0 is okay, but if it's 14-0, then I think they're in trouble. So
this is a Thursday when we're recording this. Jaire Alexander has not practiced either day, not even as a limited participant. Matt LaFleur said today that essentially he said there was some concern there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so for as well as Carrington Valentine did versus the Rams and sort of bounced back from his performance versus the Broncos, he had Jaire Alexander on the other side to sort of take away that half of the field.
And he played his best game of the year, too.
Right, and yes, Alexander played his best game. And so if it's Carrington Valentine and Corey Ballentine, though, how much difference do the Steelers have enough in their passing attack, in y'all's opinion, from Kenny Pickett and his weapons to take advantage, or does it even matter who's out there if that's kind of who you're rolling with on your outside corners?
Well, you would like to have Jaire Alexander matched up on George Pickens, because George Pickens is really talented, and he's been really frustrated and lashing out, and they're going to get him the ball. They're going to try to get him the ball. And you got to have someone who can stop him. Now, maybe Carrington Valentine can match up with him. Maybe Carrington Valentine is as good as he looked, on Sunday against the Rams. But you'd really like to have a Jaire Alexander frustrating him even more. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't play, that's tough. They're going to have to get after Pickett. I don't know if Joe Barry's willing to put pressure on him and do some blitzing and stuff, but they got to get pressure on Pickett.
Yeah.
To me, that's the only way if Jaire Alexander doesn't play.
Just blitz the house.
You got to do something.
Down the house.
But, and it's funny because they'll probably do the opposite. They'll probably sit back in zone and, let Kenny Pickett tear him apart.
Mm. Ryan, if it is Carrington Valentine and Corey Ballentine and Valentine is on Pickens, from what you've seen of him, limited as it may be, does he have enough physicality and oomph? I had to translate that word for our editor the other day because I put it in our question of the week. I put oomph, and he was like, my Southern translator's off. Can you tell me what this means?
Oomph? That's
oomph.
Like a German word.
U-M-P-H.
Oh,
I spelled it with a
it's
U.
O-O. Yeah,
See,
that's how I
spell
saw
it with a
it.
U. U-M-P-H. Well, does he have enough oomph, which is grit, want to, physicality to kind of get up there and match George Pickens and frustrate him?
Well, I don't think Carrington Valentine lacks for swagger. He was standing over Puka Nacua after forcing incompletion Sunday, literally wagging his finger to Kimbe Mutombo style. And when he was asked about George Pickens this week, he said, "It'll be a show." Like that was his take on it. So I don't, we don't know yet. It's too early to know how talented he is and if he can withstand coverage against top talented receivers. But I don't think it's a lack of grit and swagger. He's got that. I think the more fascinating decision that this coaching staff might need to make for Sunday is Rudy Ford looks like he's going to play. He's been practicing this week. And if he does, who's the safety next to him? Do you go with the veteran in Jonathan Owens, or do you go with Anthony Johnson Jr. for his second straight start after having a pick in his first start and playing pretty darn well? That, to me, that's really interesting because that gets at the crux of what this team is, right? On one hand, this is a huge game for them. If they can win this game, they're 4-5 now. There's some tough games coming up, but then the schedule gets a little softer. They kind of – I'm not saying that it's an optimistic out view or forecast, but 4-5 – there's an outside chance that they could do something this season if they can win this game, which is winnable. Do they go with Jonathan Owens because of that? Does he give him a better chance this week, or is this a developing team? And do you need to get development reps and find out what you have in Anthony Johnson Jr.? It's such a two very different paths that they could take there.
That's a really good question, and I think Rudy Ford and Jonathan Owens are the same guy. Yeah. So I would go with Anthony Johnson.
Really?
And I think he's your future. I mean, or you got to find out whether he's your future. I don't know how much he's been tested, but I sure haven't seen him just lost out there. No. I've never seen it that way. That
was part of what, when you try to evaluate what happened against the Rams, it's hard, right? But part of that they didn't have a lot of busted coverages. The communication was pretty solid. And to have a seventh-round rookie safety on the back end, that's promising. And you're right, Spoon. He is their future. How do you not start him after he just had a really good first start? Like, how do you not give him – it's like in baseball when you call up a guy from the minors, he might hit a home run for his MLB debut. How do you not put him out there the next day, let him get some momentum and some confidence building? It's the same thing in this situation with Anthony Johnson Jr.
Yeah, I think it's the same way with all those young guys. It's like, okay, they kind of had a breakout game, and, yeah, it was the Rams, but let's go see what they can do against the Steelers. They don't know any better. They don't know what steel curtain is and all the history. Throw them out there and see what they can do. You got nothing to lose.
They don't know what they don't know.
And
right.
Isn't it a reward for playing well when you're young? You should be rewarded for a good week, and they had a good week. That's the incentive. You have a good week. You keep playing. You keep getting snaps.
I could see them going with Owens and Johnson again, and Rudy Ford comes in as the nickel or dime or whatever they do. Dime.
Owens
He'd be
over
the dime. Yes. Yeah, I could see him do it, just saying, okay.
Well, they looked good last week.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. There was enough communication there.
Yeah.
A lot of that communication last week, I think, at least in the secondary, was thanks to Jaire Alexander. So I wonder what it looks like if he's not out there.
I think Owens has a lot to do with it, too. I think Owens is a really smart player, and he may be limited, but looking back at it, I watched the game all over again, and he's all over the place talking to people, and making calls, and I think that probably helped them. That's why I think he might be a better option.
Safeties have to be the driving force of that in the secondary because they're in the middle of the field.
Right.
Cornerback, it's so hard. You get a perimeter corner like Jaire Alexander who's on one side of the field communicating all the way across the other side of the field. That's why safeties have to be the driving force of the communications because they're closer to everyone. They're in better position to kind of organize and orchestrate that communication before the snap.
And that's Savage when he's out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously he's still on IR. Let's flip to the other side of it because for as much as we can justifiably focus on Kenny Pickett versus this defense, Jordan Love and this offense still have to face T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward. I mean, this is not going to be a day off. He faced. I'm trying to go back now. Daniel Hunter, Aaron Donald, and now T.J. Watt. It's a little bit of a murderer's row here when it comes to pass rush that they're having to face. How much of what they did, because Aaron Donald and T.J. Watt are two completely different players. They're both at the top of the game for their position, but they're completely different players. That being said, can you take any of what you did versus Aaron Donald and sort of apply it to this week?
Well, you can try to double T.J. Watt the way they did Aaron Donald. They doubled him whenever they could. But, they got another guy on the other side, Alex Singleton, who's coming on. I don't know. Either you're going to have to do a lot of three-step drops and just get it out of Jordan Love's hand quickly and try to negate T.J. Watt that way, or you're going to just have to slide whenever you can, because you can't let Rasheed Walker, if he ends up starting, I don't know what Yash Nyman's status is going to be, but even if it's Yash Nyman, you just can't let those guys stay on T.J. Watt by themselves. You got to have an answer.
Because the Steelers defense had 5 sacks versus the Titans the other night.
Yeah, I don't remember, but
yeah. And I want to say Watt had 2.
I mean, Watt's got 9.5 sacks. He's got an fumble, a couple fumbles, and yeah, he can destroy them.
I think the decision that this coaching staff has to make on the offensive side is whether or not they ride Aaron Jones for a second straight week, because the best way to deal with this pass rush is to run it right at him. And think about the Packers' pass rush. Think about when teams have had their most success against Rashawn Gary this season. It's when they've ran it right at him. That's what you have to do with an elite pass rusher that wants to pin his ears back, dig his toes in the ground, and absolutely get after the quarterback. You got to run it at him. So that's they rode Aaron Jones last week, and even though he didn't have a huge game by his standards, it made everything so much easier on the offense, especially for the quarterback. This is another one of those games. The Steelers' run defense is not great. They have struggled stopping the run. And I get that it's back-to-back weeks, and you usually don't see him ride Aaron Jones back-to-back weeks, but against this Steelers' run defense and this pass rush, you run it at him. That's what they've got to do. I don't know that they will, but that's the best way to take care of that.
Over under 12 touches for Aaron Jones.
Oh, over. And I would look for them to run the ball outside a lot. I know that's kind of been the Steelers' weakness, has been outside rush. So, yeah, I don't know if you can suck T.J. Watt in, with fakes or pitches or whatever. But, yeah, Aaron Jones has to be a huge part of this game.
That's often the weakness for teams with a really elite edge rush. Think about week 2, Packers-Falcons. It's that balance of you have a really good edge rush and you want to get after the quarterback, but you do that too much, you lose contain, you can bounce runs outside. That's what the Falcons did week 2 to the Packers defense. And that's what the Packers now have to do to the Steelers' defensive front. They've got to run it right at them, get it on the edge, force them to okay, you want to get after Jordan Love, well, you got to still contain. And if they can't do that, you should have a big day on the ground.
We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I just feel like the question has to be asked since the opportunity is here facing the Steelers. When you're facing TJ Watt, is that one of those times where, for the Packers organization, you go, what could have been?
No question. No question about it. That'll go down in infamy, passing it up
Why did they, for those of us that aren't as familiar with the history, why did they pass on him?
This was a Ted Thompson pick, and Kevin King had phenomenal numbers in the shuttles. Like, his feet were really quick. Like, he had some of the best numbers of any corner. He's tall, he's long. He just wasn't a very good player. He had injuries. And I don't know why Ted Thompson didn't pick. He needed a corner. They were in need of a corner, but I don't know why he made that decision. That's the closest I can come to it.
I think that this is, you take away the fact that, and it wouldn't hurt so bad if J.J. Watt or if T.J. Watt wasn't J.J. Watt's younger brother. It wouldn't hurt so bad if he played for any other Big Ten school but Wisconsin. Yeah. But he's a Milwaukee native. He was born and bred here. You take those factors aside, and this was a team going into the 2017 draft that was on the verge of the Super Bowl. They'd just been blown out in Atlanta, primarily because they were covering Ladarius Gunter against Julio Jones, and Julio Jones caught 9 of 12 targets for 180 yards and 2 touchdowns in that NFC Championship game in Atlanta. That was a problem, and that was the reason why it was 31-0 a minute into the second half. They had no answer, nobody that could cover an elite receiver, and so they entered this 2017 draft with they lost Julius Peppers during the offseason, but they just extended Nick Perry coming off his best year with 11 sacks. 5 years and $60 million or something like that. They still had Clay Matthews. Edge rusher was a need, but not anywhere near what cornerback was, especially for this team in this situation. And to me, the reason it hurts is because it's the classic example of biggest need versus best player available in the draft. You always go best player available, especially in the first round. They went biggest need, and they wanted to get speed in their secondary. They wanted an athletic, tall corner, and they felt like they got size and speed in Kevin King. And when healthy, the 2020 NFC Championship game notwithstanding, he was an okay player when healthy on the field. He had 5 interceptions his third season. They had Jaire Alexander by that point. He was the playmaker in the secondary with Jaire Alexander. That was the only season that he's healthy, though, because he entered the draft. There's a reason why he was a second-round pick. He had tremendous upside, but he had chronic shoulder issues that plagued him at Washington and then were an issue all throughout his time with the Packers. If not for those shoulder issues, yeah, he might have worked out, but that was the red flag, and it got worse in the NFL. He just never stayed on the field. So now T.J. Watt, the all-time leading sacks leader in Steelers history with 87, and sure looks like he has a potential to make a run at a Hall of Fame. Like that's the type of upside that he has. It's a pick that'll go down in infamy, but it's biggest need versus best player available is why you always take the best player available.
That's the most anybody's talked about Kevin King in years. So one of those things that made sense at the time, but in hindsight was like, man, that hurt.
I remember I'm curious what you thought right after that draft. I remember, the memory of that 2016 NFC Championship game was fresh, and they could not cover Julio Jones. They just could. And I'm like, well, they really need this. This is like the one piece that they need. They need a top corner to get over that NFC title game hump. The irony is that the 2020 NFC Championship game, he gets beat with 8 seconds left for a touchdown against Scotty Miller, and that game ends on 3rd and 4 with a defensive holding against Kevin King. But at the time, I was like, boy, we'll see how this plays out in a few years, but it made sense in the time.
I don't remember a ton about it. I know Wisconsinites were, up in arms about it, and I didn't have a feeling one way or the other. You just don't. But I'll translate it to this year or 2 years ago. The Packers took Christian Watson over George Pickens. that's another one. This year they took Musgrave over Darnell Washington. That'll be two things to watch.
Josh Myers over Creed Humphrey.
Yeah. Well, in relation to Pittsburgh, I think, these are two things to watch because Musgrave's way ahead of Darnell Washington, who everybody thought was, the answer, this massive guy at tight end. And then Pickens has been more productive than Watson, but everybody knew there were issues off the field or, behavioral issues with him. So how's that going to go? So I think those are two things that are very connected in this game.
We said we were going to go shorter today than we normally are, so I'm going to start to put your tray tables up. We're going to start to our descent here. We've all kind of been on the opponent the past couple of weeks in our predictions. What are you weighing here with this game?
I'm weighing whether to pick a blowout. I mean, I'm no way I'm taking the Packers in this game. I'm trying to decide whether it's going to be a blowout.
Ryan?
I do think it'll be a close-ish game because I don't think the Steelers are really that good. They're not that talented. But at the end of the day, you got a team that knows how to win close games against a team that does not know how to win close games. I don't know if you think I think it'll be close. If you think it's going to be close, I don't know how you don't pick the team that knows how to win close games, especially at home.
I'm feeling footloose and fancy-free. I think they ride Jones a little bit more, and I think we see a defensive touchdown for the first time this season, and Packers might be coming home 4-5.
Be big.
Hashtag freezing cold takes when this gets proven wrong on
You'll
Sunday.
edit it out.
This is the battle of the hashtags. You got hashtag fire Joe Barry against hashtag fire Matt Canada. So
that's true.
It will be interesting to see which coordinator that needs a really good day has a good day.
That's actually a very, very good point.
Yeah.
Two coordinators that both fan bases think are the problem.
Yeah.
Which one has the least worst day? The least worst day. Well, we will all be there in Pittsburgh for this game. Spoon will have his live blog starting 30 minutes before the game. It is a noon game Central Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And we will have full boots on the ground for coverage of Mirror Week Part 2. Guys, thanks as always.
You bet.
Yeah, well, sing us out, Spoon. This has been the Green 19
yes.
Green 19 podcast from JS Online at PackersNews.com.